first batch of the Indian Air Force's Rafale fighters has just departed France. 5 to 6 of these Rafale jets are expected to refuel mid-air and land at a French airbase in the United Arab Emirates. Vishnu Shom joining us with the latest details on this. Vishnu, India's ambassador to France, we believe, has also met the Indian Air Force's pilots who are flying these jets back. What more do we know?
Well, I think we need to put this first in context, the broader perspective. The last time the Indian Air Force actually acquired a new type of fighter aircraft from the West was in 1985 when the first batch of French Mirage 2000s came in. We did acquire a few more additional ones in the early 90s. But since then, this is the first new Western fighter aircraft to have entered the Indian Air Force. These pilots have now been training for approximately a year, and they are now going to be on their way to India with either 5 or 6 fighters, the Air Force not telling us. And these aircraft will be mid-air refueling through French Air Force tankers. They'll be landing at the French Air Force base at Al Dhafra near Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. They'll be spending overnight, a halt overnight over there at Al Dhafra. And then Indian Air Force air-to-air refueling tankers will be assisting them as they fly to Ambala. They'll be part of the 17th Squadron of the Indian Air Force. The first squadron of 36 Rafale jets will be based in Ambala. They get into Ambala on Wednesday. The Air Force has been saying that they want to operationalize these aircraft in a fairly quick period of time in case they should be required for duty along the line of actual control. And considering the fact that the pilots are already 100% trained and that the weapons for the aircraft have already arrived in India, making that, putting that into place is not something that would necessarily take a long period of time. The further deliveries of the Rafale aircraft are on schedule at this stage, and they will be coming in. Lots of engineering crew have also been trained. Remember, when we talk about fighter aircraft, it's the entire package that one needs to look at in terms of training. The engineers, the pilots themselves, many others, the full systems integration, the integration at the airbase. Remember, this was a 7.8 billion euro deal, the biggest single defense deal in aviation that India has done. And therefore, to ensure that it all works out smoothly is really important for the Indian Air Force, which is why they've in fact said that on the day that these jets arrive in Ambala, there will be no real press coverage, just some videos which will be handed over, and there'll be a larger ceremony later on.
Right, very interesting visuals. If you can talk to us about those a little more, Vishnu, actual pictures from a French airbase where the Indian ambassador to France is actually interacting with pilots who will fly these Rafales back to the country. So, tell us a little more about what we're seeing here.
Well, the fighters are taking off from Mérignac Air Base in France in the East region. This is a primary facility of Dassault, the manufacturer of the Rafale jets. I've actually flown the Rafale fighter myself from the same airbase in Mérignac in East to get an idea of what these jets are all about several years back. But this has been a home of these fighters, of the new build fighters of Dassault, the Indian Air Force Rafales for quite some time now, because the pilots have been training on it, the engineers have been training on it. Part of that defense deal that India and France signed off on included the training of various elements. So the Indian ambassador sort of wishing these Indian Air Force pilots all the very best as they make their way to India. It's going to be a relatively long journey. First to Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, and then on to Ambala. And the question a lot of people would ask is that why would a fighter which struggles approximately 1.8 times the speed of sound if required necessarily need to take so much time? And the answer to that is the fighters need to fly much slower because the air-to-air refueling tankers, which are big, heavy, bulky tankers, don't fly as fast as the fighters themselves, and yet the fighters need to rely on them for fuel. And so they'd be maintaining station with these air-to-air refuelers, first the French air-to-air refuelers and then the Indian Air Force refuelers after they complete their one-night halt at Al Dhafra Air Base, which is a French air base in the United Arab Emirates near Abu Dhabi.